I'm Mitch Lewis. I work for a company called Evaluator Group. And today I'm going to be talking about a couple of different ways that we use Squirrel, and then get into this TCO model that we made that uses some of the Zapier integrations and has some email and PDF functionality. So just a quick agenda. I'll just kind of introduce Evaluator Group and what we do. Then I'll talk about a couple of the ways that we got started using Squirrel, get into some of the TCO modeling and the one TCO model specifically, and then I'll wrap up with an actual demo showing the live model. So Evaluator Group, we're a IT analyst and consulting firm, really with a focus on data storage, as well as kind of anything that touches that data storage or information management kind of areas. So we cover everything from block file storage to container management to data protection, data management, all those sorts of things. So we work with a number of different groups, so both those on the IT end user side, so IT departments of different companies, and then as well as we work directly with some of the large IT vendors as well. And we do a bunch of different things. So research, we have our own research library on our website where we have different papers and research documents, as well as some interactive tools and models that we use Squirrel for. We do consulting, like with IT end users, helping them with their strategy and decision making. We do education, so we'll teach classes about the trends and the most recent technology and what's going on in IT. And then we do financial modeling, so that's another area where we use Squirrel for. We'll build financial calculators and TCO calculators. And then we do testing. We run our own test lab in our office, and we can actually take some of that data and then plug it back into some of the tools we make with Squirrel. And then we do all sorts of different things with some of the IT vendors as well. So this is just a quick little snapshot of some of the companies we work with, just so you can see there's a good mix of IT vendors and then other companies where we work with them as IT end users with their IT department. So we got started with Squirrel a handful of years ago now. We had previously been using the Excelsius tool, and we switched over to Squirrel for something that was a newer tool, more modern, going to be kept up with, and adding some of these cooler functionalities like Donald just talked about with Zapier, and we played around with the Linux capabilities and all sorts of those things. So one of the things we got started with, though, is we make these comparison matrices. So we do these for a whole bunch of different market segments. And what they are side-by-side comparisons of different products. And we actually just make these in Excel, and I spend a whole bunch of time updating them and maintaining them as things change and update and new products are released. And we do actually offer them in our research as basically just a printed PDF version. But to be honest, they're kind of hard to read. You can't just line up, the 2 or 3 products that you really want to look at next to each other. So what we've done with Squirrel is we've actually made an interactive version of that. So you can see this little picture on the side. That's what it looks like. And it's pretty straightforward, but you can just pick the 3 or 4 products that you're interested in viewing and drag them over, and then actually compare them. So there's a couple different tabs on here. There's a compare tab, and that is the matrix. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. It just takes the data in from Excel, and it you can line up your products and see row by row different features, functionalities, specifications. And then the other tab is what we call a value scale, and that is kind of our condensed assessment of the products for a bunch of different criteria, normally about 10 or 11. So it's pretty straightforward, but by using Squirrel, we can take kind of this Excel data we have and really quickly just turn it into a much more useful interactive tool that end users can, IT departments can come in and kind of look at and compare the products they're maybe looking at purchasing. And then on the other hand, the IT vendor can take a look at this and kind of see how they're stacking up against their competition. So something we've done a little bit more recently is we've taken that Evaluator piece and condensed it a bit and turned it into an actual ranking system. So this is something we want to do. A lot of other analyst firms have, ranking, different types of rankings. So we started to put this together and we called it Evaluator Insights. But when we're making it, we realized that just one ranking maybe wasn't the best way to go about it, because different customers, different people have, different needs. So just one ranking saying these are the best products, these are kind of the middle products, and these are, the developing products wasn't the best way to go about it. So we actually used Squirrel again and turned it into an online interactive tool. So we still kind of rank things into leaders, challengers, and developing, but kind of the cool interactive piece that we put into this is we set up different templates basically that we're calling business drivers that will weight the different value scale criteria in different ways. So you can, it's really a pretty simple tool, but you can click through on the bottom of the different business drivers and it will actually rearrange who are the leaders, the challengers, or developing based on, kind of a different set of criteria for what we've identified as different common use cases. And then we also took that one step further and added in a customize option. So you can actually click on that little customize criteria button and it'll bring up some inputs and you can actually put in your own custom weighting for different things. So this is kind of a cool way that we've used Squirrel more recently, just to have an actual ranking, but kind of differentiate ourselves as an analyst firm by making it a bit different than other rankings and making it interactive and something you can play around with and use for your own needs. So getting into the TCO modeling, this is where our more complex Squirrel implementations come in. So we do financial modeling to TCO calculators and other financial tools to help. Sometimes they'll be free on our website. Sometimes they'll be for specific vendors to kind of show off their products. So we have a bunch of different stuff that's up on our website. We have a 2-tier archiving model that looks at, tiering data off to the cloud or tape or object storage. We have a data reduction estimator. We have a tool that looks at the economics of using flash storage, and then another one that looks at the economics of device failures. And we have a whole bunch of other tools that we've made to help organizations make different purchasing decisions and things like that. But those are just some examples of some free ones that were up on our website. But the one I want to talk about is this TCO model that we made somewhat recently for, we made it for a specific IT vendor. But what I'm going to show is kind of an anonymized version. So we took out their logos and colors and everything. So we're not showing any specific vendor information or anything like that. But all the functionality in there is the same. So it's a TCO model that basically compares vendor A versus generic storage solution, and you can play around with some of the inputs, and it will show you the costs and your potential savings. But we use some of the newer kind of cool features of Squirrel to add in a couple new things that we didn't have before, like when we were using Excelsius. So the first thing is it uses actually live data from Google Sheets. So similar to what Donald was talking about, but a little less involved than an Inox database. But it's pretty valuable to us because if you could imagine there's pricing updates or there's some sort of software update that's going to change the performance, that data is going to change. So we can just go into Google Sheets, update it once, and then we don't have to go back into Excel and rebuild the tool or anything like that. And then that live data populates in the tool every time that the model is loaded. So that's one thing we did. And then the other thing is the Zapier integrations. So we put in some fields where you can actually put in your information, and you'll be emailed a PDF report of what you played around with in the tool. And then on the vendor side, that contact information gets uploaded to HubSpot so that the vendor actually has some takeaway data there for leads, and they can see who's been playing around with the tool and what they've been looking at. So this is what the email report looks like. It's pretty straightforward, but it just it basically just models what is shown in the TCO calculator, but it's pretty valuable because it actually allows the user to take something away. So it's actually takes the online tool one step further and makes it somewhat actionable, so that instead of just playing around with it online and then forgetting about it, you can take something home with you, sort of look at it later, maybe bring it back to your organization, bring it to your boss and say, hey, look, I played around with this tool. We could save $2 million potentially if we use this storage solution. So I didn't trust myself enough to actually configure this all live in Squirrel. So I just took some snapshots, but you can kind of see how this was set up, and it was really pretty straightforward. On the bottom there, we just put all of the information that we wanted to send into this integration into the PDF on a Excel sheet. So you can see there's a area for a first name, a last name, an email, some capacity information, IOPS information, all of that stuff. And then it was really as simple as creating an API key, and then selecting this range of data that we have in the Excel sheet, and then we assigned it to trigger every time a cell changes. And this is the same thing that Donald was doing with the buttons. So that cell is associated with a button. That button, when it's pressed, it flips between 0 and 1 in the sheet. So the cell changes and the trigger gets kicked off. This is a little overview of what the whole Zapier integration looks like from start to finish. So it starts with the Squirrel trigger that kicks off anytime that button gets clicked. We use a tool called PDF Monkey to create this basically a PDF template that the data gets plugged into, and then that gets sent off in an email. We upload the same file into Google Drive just to keep kind of a backup and retain what we've been sending to people. And then the final couple of steps are creating a new or updating an existing HubSpot contact, and then adding it into a list for specifically who's been playing around with this tool. So again, that creates a lead for the vendor, shows them what types of things people are looking for with their product, and who's been looking at it, all that good stuff. So this is in Zapier. This is just how the Squirrel trigger gets connected. Really simple. Again, all we had to do was put in that API key, and then as you can see down at the bottom, that's all the data that I had, the same exact data that I had in the Excel sheet. So the name, the email, all that good stuff, and it just populated right away. And then to hook it into the PDF, it was just as simple as selecting the template, and then if you look down again at the bottom, all that Squirrel data is you can just kind of plug it in, and it was just a quick JSON payload. So all I had to do was there's areas in the PDF template for email, and that gets connected to the email data from Squirrel. Same thing with first name, last name, and on and on. And then for configuring the email, kind of the same thing. We could take that data from Squirrel and plug it in. We didn't do anything super fancy in terms of the subject line or the body, but you can see that we actually used the data from Squirrel and plugged it in there, so it's dynamic, and it says, this email is for whoever filled out the fields in the model. And then down at the very bottom, you can see that the PDF is attached as an attachment. And then I won't go through the HubSpot stuff because I think you guys probably get the point, but it worked the exact same way, where all you had to do was plug in those same Squirrel values that get brought in through Zapier, and then assign them to where they need to go in HubSpot, and the integration takes care of the rest. So I have the actual model here. This is up on our website, and again, this is the anonymized one, so it's maybe looks a little less stylized than the real vendor version, but we're pretty happy with it. So it's fairly straightforward, and we want to make the actual interface of the model as simple to use and as straightforward as we possibly could. So you can see it gives you a cost for using one solution versus the competitor solution, and then down here it gives you your overall savings, tells you, how many terabytes, the performance, and then how many years this is looking at. And all this stuff is configurable. So we wanted to keep it to just a couple inputs of the capacity, so you can change the capacity of what you're looking for. Same thing with performance. Select how many IOPS you want, and then how much your capacity is going to grow. So maybe 20%. And you can actually change how many years you want to look at. So we give you 1, 3, or 5, just to keep it simple. We'll do 3 years maybe. And then the competitor utilization is kind of the final input. I'll say 50%. So the actual tool is pretty simple, but there's a whole bunch of different calculations that are built into the Excel sheet in the background that actually configure the storage configuration, how many nodes you would need, does that meet the capacity requirements? Does that model meet the performance requirements? Otherwise, they'll go to a different model. It looks at data reduction, some data replication, all sorts of different things that were really complicated on our end, but using Squirrel, we could kind of just take all that complicated Excel mess that we made, plug it in, and then have a really clean interface in the front where we just have, five different inputs, and then, a pretty accurate cost estimation to kind of get the ball rolling for that vendor of, look, hey, here's what we can potentially offer. And then in the actual vendor version, we had, some extra marketing stuff of, their specific technology and all those good things over here, but it's kind of blank. And then the cool part of this is really the Zapier integration. So that's down here. And since Donald was talking about it, I want to point it out, we put in that same button functionality. So this button is kind of blanked out until you fill out these fields. So it's just company name, and then first name, last name, and your email. And then, so once those are all filled out, this button is available. So you can click that, and then again, that's associated to a cell. Anytime that one cell changes, that whole Zapier process kicks off. It goes through, it fills out the PDF, and then it emails, and then on the back end, that same first name, last name, company name, and email get put into HubSpot and works as a sales lead for the vendor. And then at the same time, once the process has been kicked off, this little box comes up and just says, hey, we've emailed you a TCO report. It should be there shortly, so you can get rid of that. And then if I go to my email, oh no, I did something wrong. I probably spelled something wrong. As a backup, I did this earlier. I promise it works. So this is the PDF report. As you can see, so this information just mirrors exactly what I had in the model. So again, my information, company information, the performance capacity information, and then all the savings information, and then it breaks it down by the two different solutions, how many nodes, the effective capacity, copies of data, all that stuff. So it's pretty simple looking, but again, this is kind of an added functionality of taking the online calculator one step forward, and having something to then take with you and actually look at later, and kind of get that whole ball rolling of making a decision. And then at the same time, for the IT company, they have some contact info where they can reach out and say, hey, are you interested in starting this whole process? So I'm really bummed that my live email didn't work, but I think I probably just spelled the email wrong, and Zapier said, hey, this isn't
I can validate, because when we were doing the test, I remember you tested that and we saw it. So
yeah,
that counts.
So it's actually probably a good thing. Zapier flagged it as probably being an incorrect email address. So it's a feature, not a bug. But normally it works. So that's kind of what I had with the demo and the tool we made, and the couple other things that we use Squirrel for. It's been a really powerful tool for us to quickly get up and running with some of these interactive stuff that we can either put in our research or actually work with clients or help certain organizations make decisions, and all sorts of those things. So thank you guys for letting me speak and go through my stuff. And if anyone has any questions, I'm definitely happy to answer them.